Consciousness Study Group. Welcome to our Thursday class. It's a pleasure to have you all with us. As usual, we do our reading, and from our reading, we do share thinking. So we'll proceed with the same process of reading as usual, and we'll ask one member to read for us. I don't know who will be reading. Sister Myra, are you in a position to read for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, please proceed, Sister Myra.
One interesting point is that the difference between them notwithstanding, Plato and Aristotle both conceived society in static terms. Their conception was of a society which permitted of no revision. In Plato's view, once a society had been set up, according to the provisions outlined in the Republic, the perfect society would have been attained. And what is perfect cannot change for the better. In this way, he introduced the idea of a finite social evolution. And Aristotle, to the extent that he regarded the democratic society as the perfect form of society, also operated the idea of a finite social evolution. Though neither Plato nor Aristotle had the power to bring his ideas to social fruition, Europe threw up men who had the power and the will, but not the good fortune to implement the perfect society. Napoleon was such a person, and of the Prussian state, Hegel confessed that it represented the political incarnation of his absolute idea, the march of God in history. Hitler, too, in our own times, sought to introduce the perfect society. Since the perfect society is conceived in terms of the terminal of social evolution, its procreators have persistently envisaged millennia of unruffled monotony.
Yes, thank you, Sister Myra, for reading this for us. Probably I will go a paragraph up and you read the paragraph up for us, just to connect the where we are to the last paragraph. But our concentration is this paragraph for the benefit of those who are not there, because these are continuation of a conversation in the previous paragraph. Sister Myra, if you allow me, permit me to go to the last paragraph, then you read it for us as well.
Okay. Plato was called to Syracuse.
Sister Myra, just read it from the paragraph before, the two of them, because those are the past paragraphs, but we are not going to concentrate much on them. We can actually understand some background from that.
In the political sphere.
Yes, start there.
In the political sphere, Aristotle made a similar claim to perfection. Having analyzed the nature of a democratic constitution, he said that it was the natural way of organizing a society. To claim that it is natural is to contrast it with other types of constitution, which are presumably unnatural or less natural. By a natural constitution, Aristotle meant one which is consorted most with the talents of man and the ethics which best suited him. A natural constitution was therefore for him one which gave political expression to the nature of man. In saying, therefore, that a democratic constitution is the natural way of organizing a society, he was claiming perfection for it. Plato was called to Syracuse to educate a future ruler. There, he saw a beautiful opportunity of producing a ruler tailored to his political ideas. He seized the opportunity and failed. So he returned to Athens, a disappointed man. Aristotle, too, had a responsibility for the education of Alexander, later called the Great. But the democratic seeds which he sowed withered in Alexander's barren ground. These two great philosophers of antiquity, so full of ideas for the regeneration of society, utterly lacked the power to bring them to social fruition.
Thank you, Sister Myra. Now, that is what we read last time, and the conversation continues this week. Of course, taking a different dimension a bit back to society, because this chapter we are reading is philosophy and society. And Nkrumah is trying to read various philosophers and how they related or influenced the society. Some people ask, why do we keep reading Aristotle and Plato? But basically, Nkrumah think it's trying to expose their philosophy in a society and the weaknesses of their philosophy in a society so that to challenge it, because it's one thing to say this is wrong, but another thing to analyze and defend your position. So here Nkrumah is trying to expose all the positions. So what you've now read is still the continuation of this on either pursuit for perfection or whatever is going on. So just I will allow members to share their thinking as we always do so that we can keep moving. I'll start with Brother Coco today. Last time you were not able to speak, but you spoke late. Let me know if you can start us off, Brother Coco. Brother Coco?
Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right. Greetings, good comrades, wherever you are. Last time I contributed actually, and I think I contributed, but we had Kwame Gonza and we had you, and we had our sister Marsha and sister Ida. So it was an interesting discussion, and this week is a follow-up of that of last week's discussion, where we see that he calls them the great philosophers of antiquity, but full of ideas, but lack power to bring them to fruition. And you'll see again in today's session, again, they come up with ideas, but they lacked the way of making that perfect society happen. So there is that disconnect between idealism and the reality on the ground. So what we are learning here is that it's not enough to just say this is how the world is. There is a question of how do you make it happen? And again, I think what our ancestors here is saying is That democracy which you espouse so much, which you put so much value on it, the way it was thought of or came about or idealized is not exactly what's happening on the ground. So don't just stop there and say, this is how democracy is. Challenge it, ask questions, see how that can be improved. Is this the right thing? Is it the right governance system for us as Africans? We need to keep asking ourselves those questions. Some months ago, I saw a video of two of those Jeffos kids. Or, I cannot call them kids; they're adults now. They were being interviewed, and during that interview, they differed in seeing how their father was handling things. One was saying their father was undemocratic, but the other, Samira, the sister, was saying no, he was democratic. It's just that the way he did things is not up to the book. It's not what they say here, what Socrates was saying. And let's not forget, Socrates is the one who is saying democracy is perfect. And he's saying democracy is a finite social evolution. But again, permit me to take you back to where democracy came from. Yes, you hear me?
That is Aristotle, not Socrates.
Yes. Thank you for that correction. I get the names mixed up. So I meant the younger one, who is Aristotle. So Aristotle saw democracy as the perfect or the natural system which man was meant to embrace. And according to Plato, Plato is the one who came up with a finite social evolution. And Aristotle then operated the concept of democracy in those terms of a finite social evolution. But he got egalitarianism from Africa through Socrates, then through Plato. But along the way, this got distorted. It's just like having a Chinese whispers. You tell someone something, you tell that other one tells someone something, and then tells the other one something. At the end of the day, what you're going to get from the last person is not the same as what you started with. And I think is there. There was always going to be that risk, but at the same time, they cannot expect that we teach them something and then they come back and teach us that, and it will be the same thing. So we as Africans, we have to take that in mind. We have to realize where we come from. We have to know ourselves. If we know ourselves and we know how good we are, if we remember, we definitely will take back control of what is ours. The same concept, but in its purest form, egalitarianism. I hope I make sense.
Cool. Brother Coco?
Yes, that's my bit. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm interested in just keeping you a bit longer. When there's in this text, we are seeing two terms coming in: a society being static and being finite.
Yeah.
What do you say out of these readings in regards to those two terms that are major terms in this concept of the conversation and the difference between Aristotle and Plato, on society being static and being finite? And so, generally, what's your view or your thinking in regards to that as well?
Thank you. Thank you for redirecting my mind there. So static, it's something that's not going to change. So static remains unchanged regardless. So static is contrasted with dynamic. In a dynamic society, things are changing all the time. Things are changing all the time. And we have to realize that we are always changing. We are always evolving. Such is life. In fact, I think what Dr. Nkrumah challenged the other African leaders at Addis Ababa in 1963 was they wanted gradualism. They said, we have to wait until we are ready as Africans before we can unite. Let's not rush into this. We need to wait. And Dr. Nkrumah countered that by saying, do you think the world is going to wait for you? The world cannot wait for you. It can't. Things are always evolving. They cannot say, oh, let's wait until the Africans are ready to unite, then we will allow them. No, things are moving on. That's why we move from colonialism into new colonialism, because they are coming up with new ideas all the time on how to counter happenings and things changing. With finite, we are talking about
No,
things
brother Coco.
Yeah, go ahead.
In light with that static and what you've said, there's been conversation among the Pan-Africans that whether we go back, we look back, Sankofa, we bring back our traditional setups and everything else and how the society used to run. Now, in line to this static, if we say that we bring back our traditional running and ruling system, we then overlook at that the society is not static and that the society is dynamic as has been moving. Because the static aspect that Plato and Aristotle tried to apply to a society was not in line with the society. Or do you think that the society is static? Because if it is not static, then do you think by borrowing the real form as it was in the Sankofa thinking, can still work to this society today?
Yes. So as I said to you, just imagine the Chinese whispers, right? We were on course. We were developing as people, as a society, but we were disrupted from that evolution or from that development by people who came in from outside and said they know more, they know better. And we let go of what we knew and embrace that what they brought. So that is a problem. But if you do some offer and go back and pick what is right and then mix it with what you know now, you're going to only pick what you had, what was yours, and throw away what you think is outdated, is no longer necessary, and then improve by things which are happening. We need to rethink as Africans and say, okay, is democracy serving us? Is it serving our purpose? And let's just take the case of the Alliance of the Sahel. They are all saying it's undemocratic the way they took power. But look what they've done already. And are they not implementing the people's will? We need to think about that carefully. And the rule of the people is always the rule of the people. It doesn't only have to go by the ballot box. There are many different ways in which the Africans can do things. Yeah.
I want, sorry for engaging you, but I think this will also be helpful a bit to some of our contribution as well. You've touched on Sahel. You've touched on Sahel.
Correct.
The Sahel is not applying the traditional African governance system. It is not, when the Sahel leaders came to power, they did not go back to the chief and the kingdom and whatever. That was initially in our foundation of African society. But they are using a procedure that then gives them the result. A result that works to the people without basically taking back the initial procedures of setup of society. Second thing, bearing in mind that the factors that make the society, the social condition of then our traditional society to the current social condition of this society as it is, don't you think that then we should be in a conversation that the society is not static and therefore we should look at how the society moves forward? But here, it's contrary to what Aristotle and Plato is saying. Plato and Aristotle are believing that society is static and it's perfect as it is. What do you think about that?
No, before we go any further, I need to correct you on something, which I need you to be aware of. So the Alliance of the Sahel, they took power because they knew how the people were feeling. They already felt how the people were feeling. Okay, let's not forget, when we say democracy, we say the rule of the people by the people. The soldiers there are representing the people. They are doing what the people want. In this case, if the people didn't want the soldiers in charge, they will have revolted against the soldiers. They will have done a revolution against the soldiers. But you can see on the streets of Ouagadougou, you can see on the streets of Niger or in Mali, the people want the soldiers in power. They were tired of being overruled or being coup-d'etat. So whatever governance they had at that time, it was not working for them as the people. Hence, it wasn't democratic. But now it's democratic because it's following what the people wanted. And they are implementing the will of the people. Hence, why they are getting the results. And they are doing everything by taking back control. Whereas all the other African countries don't have control of whatever they have. The economic control still rests with the erstwhile colonizers. All the multinational corporations are still from the colonizers, and they continue to undermine democratic principles in Africa. Is that clear? Then if that is okay, then I'll answer your question again by saying things are changing. There is dynamism in everything. There are always new information. There's always new information coming in. And using that new information, you only have to improve the system you have. You don't necessarily have to follow the system of the oppressor or the system from the east or the system from the west. You take what works. And that's what Boko, the Botswana guy, said. He said, we have to be practical. We have to be pragmatic. Take what works. Let's not say, oh, socialism works. It's the best way we can go. Capitalism works, is the panacea for all our ills. No, we need to look at our material needs and then look at material solutions for those needs. We have to look at what we have as Africans. Take our resources and develop them before we sell them. Yeah. I'm listening, brother.
You are admitting in that then that the society is not static. Is it what I'm getting?
Yes, no, the society is not
But you are
static.
also confirming, as you say, actually social condition then forms societal. Yes. Okay, thank you. Proceed.
Yeah, sorry, I missed some of your bit there. What did you say?
I'm saying it's okay, you proceed, because you have confirmed that you are not in line with what Plato and Aristotle advocate, that society is static. And you are saying that social condition in a society then affect the societal need. For example, if they put democracy as what you're saying, we have been trying to implement democracy in Africa as thinking that it's static or it's perfect.
Yes.
But you realize that it cannot maybe sometimes be perfect or applicable to some of our society. And therefore, there's a need to know that there's nothing like perfection in terms of their philosophy. And then that we need to be aware of the social condition, which you talk of practical, the social condition then to understand what can work for us than thinking that something's perfect.
Absolutely. So I think, let me just summarize my submission by saying, we as Africans, we have to look at our needs. We have to look at what we have. And we have to look at what the people need and address the people's needs using the material resources that we have. First and foremost, before giving anyone else those resources. But it has not been happening like that. And democracy that Plato or Aristotle came up with is the one that has been used and has been unchanged throughout. But what they've been doing, go read Silent Coup, go read Manufacture and Consent, all of those books, they tell you that the elites are the ones who are coming in and using the elites in Africa to topple the democracy, the democratic, the rights of the people. So no, it's not static, it's dynamic. And there's no perfection. We can always perfect things as we go. Again, referring back to the African Union, it never happened because the African people thought we will have perfection in our states before we unite them. No, they can never be perfection. We need to unite them now and then work on the perfect model as we go.
Okay, thank you, Brother Coco. Sister Tapua, we've missed you for a
Hello,
while.
everyone.
Hello, I'm happy to see you.
Yes, I'm just hoping and crossing my fingers that I'll last the meeting because I've been dropping in and out. Unfortunately, I've not been in the previous sessions, but this is my contribution from what we've read today. What I'm finding interesting is the fact that Plato and Aristotle had ideas, just like we have ideas of where we want to go. The challenge is making it happen. Because I was struck by that phraseology that Europe threw out men who had power and the will, but not the good fortune to implement the perfect society. My question, therefore, is we have ideas of where we want to go and what we want to do. What does good fortune look like for us to implement what we have in mind? That's what I'm questioning right now. Because as an African, we know that we have questions with our leadership. We know that we're beginning to get a new kind of leadership coming up who have ideas and who are trying to implement those ideas. What is our role in the different African settings that we're in that will help us get to where we want to get? I think that's what I'm grappling with right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think your question will need to be some answers. Brother Carrington, are you able to start by trying to answer the question? But Sister Ida is here. Sister Ida?
Right. Sorry, Brother Carrington. May I go before you, if you don't mind? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Oh, okay. I was going to continue with where Sister Tapua left off, in that I think that in this paragraph, when it says Europe threw up men who had the power and the will, but not the good fortune to implement the perfect society, I think he's talking about Napoleon and Hitler. At the time, I thought, when it was first read, I thought it was about the fact that, look, these are people who have tried very hard to make what they say count. Like Hitler's final solution and all that. It was like, where on earth did that come from? But he had the power to do that. And the fact that Napoleon, I'm trying to think how Napoleon came about, whether it was after the French Revolution, I think so, and then he took over power and became. But the French Revolution was such a mess; all those people killed, and then I think Napoleon came about. Somebody could correct me quickly if I'm going wrong, but and then tried to implement his will. So I think that's what he's talking about. These people who think that they have an idea for a perfect solution for society, they may have been got to the top, however they got to the top, but their perfect society is so warped, and which is what I think is nice about the Sahel countries, or at least about Burkina Faso. The idea is not about people, not about reducing people to, but trying to create a better society for people. I think that to me would be the difference of what I am seeing, and the march of God in history. So with luck and God's help, which I know there are lots of you who start screaming as soon as the name of God is mentioned, but you know, Sister Tapa, you've come on instead of the reading. So anyhow, I think that to me, I think that's the difference. And I think that it's important that those sort of people could be mentioned. Have we lost the reading? Sorry. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I think that really there is no such thing as a perfect society, but people trying to improve society rather than trying to say there's a perfect society. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
That's very profound. There's no something like a perfect society. Brother Carrington, please come in. Sister Tapua?
After listening to my sister here, I'm just wondering, we have leaders who have the power, who have the ideas of where they want to go and the power to make things happen. But we also have been given examples of leaders who had the power and the ideas, but lacked the fortune to execute the ideas. I'm thinking of what happens to leadership in Africa, particularly leadership that has ideas and that is fortunate enough to come into power. Because this then explains why, when such leadership gets into power, they're removed from power. I'm thinking of Kwame Nkrumah himself. He had ideas. He had the way he wanted to go. He got into power, and it was made impossible for him to execute his ideas. This is why I think we're holding our breath when it comes to the leadership in the Sahel, because we know they have ideas. We know they're fortunate enough to be in power, but we're really crossing our fingers and praying to God that they be given the fortune to see their ideas through. So that we want a united Africa is good. That we're getting people into power who will help us implement that is also great. But this is where it becomes very dangerous, because then the powers that be want to eliminate, because we've skipped all these levels in trying to get to where we want to go. And they know once we get there with the people with the ideas and with the power, then the world is our oyster. So I'm just kind of hitting in on the fact that it's a journey and we need to be aware of the dangers that our leaders are going to face potentially. Thank you.
Yes, Sister Tapua, this is Brother Kwame.
Yes.
So just stay on that topic. I want to push you slightly
All right.
along that trajectory. So you know where you got to the point where you said the powers that be, however, yeah? So the powers that be, what do they do? From what you are narrating.
Okay, there's a wrestling of power here, because what we're trying to do is reassert ourselves and be in control of our own fortune.
Yes.
But
and what are the powers that be? My point is, the powers that be, what are they trying to do?
They're trying to make sure it doesn't happen.
Good.
They're trying to create it.
Okay, good. No, it's okay. So what you're saying, therefore, is that the problem is that they are suffering from exactly what we are reading, which is the idea that there's a perfect society where the black man is always at the bottom and has to be controlled, told what to do, should not express himself, and so on and so forth. So, I hope you are seeing what I'm getting at.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Now,
yes.
if that is the case, then they are suffering from what Plato and Aristotle suffered from. In other words, the powers that be that you've mentioned are attempting to implement Plato and Aristotle.
Yes.
Now, my question then is, from what we are reading, will they succeed permanently in preventing Africans from asserting themselves?
Absolutely
So
not.
that's my question to you, to build up your point. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Absolutely not. Because if we're saying the situation is not static, it means, I mean, throughout, from the time that they were trying to subjugate us up to now, they've tried everything. I mean, from medically trying to make sure that we're eliminated, to affecting our leaders, to affecting our health, to just making sure that our population does not grow, but it's not working. So we will succeed. Absolutely. I think I'll end there for now.
Brother Coco, Brother Kwame?
Oh no, it's fine. I just want to, yes, I just kind of came in to just get Tatapoa to continue her line of thinking to its ultimate conclusion, which is what we are reading in the text. And listening to her, I think she's done that, so it's okay. So I don't have anything more to add, except when I get to my 10, I'll also share my thinking. In the meantime, I'm listening avidly. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome, Brother Kwame. I didn't know you were in. I just heard your voice. Thank you. Brother Carrington, two sisters have been competing, I think, to share their thinking prior to your thinking. And now you have the floor. Please feel free to share with us your thinking.
Now they have exhausted everything. Now we must struggle. Yeah. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for listening to me, and thank you for your ideas. They're very informative as usual. These two paragraphs are communicating two important ideas. One is the idea of perfect societies, and two is the idea that philosophers, thinkers, academics are constrained basically in their ability to, they are constrained in their ability to basically influence change in society. So we do not live in a technocracy, democracy, dictatorships, fascist, communist, are all conversations between ideas of how to rule society, even our traditional schemes. So two important ideas. Let's start with the first, this idea of a perfect society or a stationary society. Now, philosophers, especially old and ancient Greek philosophers of the antiquity, essentially were very interested in designing a perfect society, a society which they felt would be more in line with human nature, a society which they felt would be more in line with nature and God, himself, herself, or themselves. And this informs a lot of the philosophy of Plato, for example, in the Republic, and Aristotle. Now, there are constraints, as has been said, in that Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, of course, tragically, did not have a lot of political power in their respective societies. And they either suffered physically, in the case of Socrates, or in the case of Plato and Aristotle, all they could do was heavy theoretical treatments of how they understand a perfect society should function. Now, later on in the second paragraph, Osajivo engages with this idea of a stationary or perfect society. And that even later philosophers, for those of you who do not know Hegel, Hegel is the guy who came up with this idea of the dialectic, that nature, societies arise from processes of contradictions between two opposite forces, which then Karl Marx used for his later work on Marxism
Sorry,
and
but like
yes,
Harrington,
yes,
can I come in there?
yes, yes,
Please,
please.
Hegel did not invent dialectic. It's part of
Was
the
it
African
who came up
tradition.
with the dialectic? Was it not Hegel?
It's part of the African tradition.
Oh, okay,
You know,
fair,
he
fair,
didn't come up
fair,
with it.
yeah. Yeah, okay, he's one of the people. I should really be careful when I'm speaking to Africans. He is one of the people who basically elaborated the idea and applied it basically to the then European state of Prussia and in general in philosophy. But again, he is constrained. Hegel has to work within the constraints of the Prussian state. Prussia was basically bordering Germany, or was an ancestor state of Germany, but it was dictatorial and authoritarian. So Hegel ends up adapting his philosophy to the Prussian, to his understanding of the Prussian state. Again, people with ideas becoming constrained by their respective societies. And now these ideas filter in over a period of 5 or 6 decades from the late 1800s to 1900s and filter in into the National Socialists. This is the party of Hitler, this is the party of Himmler, Goebbels, etc. And they take this idea very seriously, taken together with ideas from another German philosopher called Nietzsche, and try to build the perfect German society or the perfect Aryan society. And of course, now this society does not have space for any other ethnic groups. It does not have space, for example, for the African American children who were born in Germany from the previous war when the United States was fighting Germany and the United Kingdom, the Rhineland bastards, that's what they were called. It does not have space for these people. It does not have space for Jews. It does not have space for communists. It does not have space for anybody with disabilities. And therefore, all of these people are basically exterminated or to be exterminated in pursuit of the perfect society as the National Socialists understand. And here is where now I see the danger of this philosophy of the perfect society. That the inclination to pursue a perfect society causes two things. One, that any cost should be paid. Okay? So the president of Kenya basically said that Kenya will be orderly at any cost. And very many dictatorships have this mentality of any cost to be paid. The pursuit of perfect society can pay any cost. A second danger with such societies is the stagnation. Okay? The stagnation that will come from attaining this perfect society. And this is the last sentence by the Osagefo. Its procreators have persistently envisaged millennia of unruffled monotony. So perfect societies want stagnation, want things to remain as they are. Brother Kwame keeps on reminding us of the notion of the conservative Pan-Africanist. Let us try, but let us try keeping things as much as possible as they are, right? The notion of stagnation in society. Now, we should recognize, even in our case, that we are trying to push a Pan-African philosophy, that the achievement of the Pan-African state, when Africa becomes a single geopolitical entity, that state won't be perfect. And that we should realize that we should not therefore be willing to pay any cost to achieve that state, because the ends don't justify the means. So this is the danger of people who sell or pursue a perfect society. Second, the notion of constrained philosophy. Philosophy is constrained necessarily because it has to meet with the realities of society. So philosophy is in an ongoing discussion or dialogue with society. Its ideas must eventually meet their realities on the ground. And insofar as philosophers or powerful politicians espouse certain ideologies that do not stick with the reality on the ground, they are likely to be delusional and they are likely to fail. So that is why the Osagefo talks about Napoleon, for example. Napoleon is a mixture of the ideologue and the practical European politician and also the imperialist. For those of you who don't know, Toussaint Louverture, one of the founding fathers of Haiti, died in a French prison as a result of the decisions of Napoleon Bonaparte. So Napoleon introduces something called the Napoleonic Code, a law based on liberal philosophy, but nonetheless is practically adapted to the concerns and needs of French. But he does not extend it to all people under the control of the French. He does not extend it to all people under the control of the French Empire. And what this ends up doing is cause contradictions. And this is the point of a perfect society, that even your idea of a perfect society is going to cause certain contradictions, and there will be categorical conversions within society, such that society, by definition, cannot be static. It has to evolve. And therefore, your ability to try and keep society in its current state, for example, in Kenya, for example, in most of East Africa, most of Africa, the ability of the state to keep Africans in their permanent state of exploitation, not just by Europeans, but also by the local bourgeoisie, the local rich, is highly constrained and is reducing every year. And therefore, your perfect state is somebody else's horrible state, and this is going to cause contradictions, and therefore the perfect state is not possible. And we need to adapt even our Pan-African thinking to this reality. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Brother Carrington, you have actually analyzed this deeply. The sisters have said thank you as an affirmation of their agreement with you. But Brother Carrington, on the concept of perfect society, I understand where you say that, of course, this then shows that either dictatorship, dynasties, neocolonialism can no longer be static. Of course, there will not be static conditions, the same way we had imperialism, colonialism to neocolonialism. Therefore, we are seeing, of course, parts of Africa where leaders and rulers who thought they will be permanent or for life have also been overthrown. And the society are moving and it keeps moving. And as you are saying to the Pan-Africans, that yes, we have also to think about what do you think on the continent? Now, in regards to the society of Africa, this society we want to envision, or the society we are currently in Africa, how do you see these seats? Because, of course, the aspect of a failure and the danger of pursuing a perfect society and a failure of pursuing a perfect society has its damages as well. It has its costs as well. And then how do we actually, one, as you've said, it rules out the concept of being a perfect society. That we cannot attain, or there is nothing like a perfect society. And in this aspect, there's also a question that was raised by Sister Tapua, that he says that the European threw up men who had the power and the will, but not the good fortune to implement. The aspect of claiming fortune as a failure of implementation, I think is more idealist. Because if you conceptualize that you had the men with the power and they had the will, which in Africa we say there's lack of political will. then you want to blame the fortune as a reason of not implementation. So how generally do you think these things to assist to us as a society today, knowing very well that the Pan-African goals and vision is attainment of one continental government, one continental country, and other one free borders, one continental education, currency, and the rest, one. And you have mentioned the categorical convention and dialectics in a society. And I think that's why it's never perfect, because there's dialectics, there's opposing forces in a society. How do you think about this, General? Maybe I've not been very clear to what I've explained, but how do you react to whatever I've said?
Yeah, if I understood correctly, you are trying to think about, well, if we get our chance in the sun, what are we going to do about this, essentially, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm.
Yeah. Nice. So, successful societies that realize this, first is to surrender the idea of a perfect society. That needs to be surrendered. And what you're looking for is not a perfect society, is an optimal society. So what kind of Africa will respond to the challenges of the 21st century? It's very simple. It's the kind of Africa that can put a dam on River Congo, producing electricity for much of sub-Saharan Africa. It's the kind of Africa that can ensure a Pan-African road network to ensure the easy movement of goods, services, and people across the continent. That is an Africa that can respond to the challenges of the 21st century and stand its ground in the world alongside a United States of 350 million people, an India of 1 point something billion, a China of 1 point something billion, and a Russia the size of North Africa, right? The only way we assert ourselves geopolitically is by uniting. So it's not that Pan-Africanism is heaven, it is that Pan-Africanism is the most optimal tool for our internal and external security, stability, and prosperity. I think this is a much better way of selling Pan-Africanism. Now, how do you sell a strong state? You sell there is only one way of selling a strong state that I have seen is stable. You sell a strong state by accepting the contradictions that come with a strong state. For example, something you can do is ensure maximum economic, political, and social freedoms. And this is what is happening in Kenya, that there's a small group of the country that basically has taken hostage over the country. It's not the president personally. He is a product, he is a symptom of a much, much bigger disease. That there's a group of people who have taken control over the society and are basically running an oligarchy. The long and short of it is that they're basically running an oligarchy. And now this has brought increased tension in the country, to which this oligarchic class has reacted to by violence and intimidation, which is only making the people angry. The way to resolve this is to deconcentrate this economic power, deconcentrate this political power, and our constitution actually demands devolution of power, deconcentrate all of this power to the communities, such that there is no perfect society, but everyone is free to pursue their own understanding of a perfect society. And I think this is what can work for Africa at scale. Massive, large-scale personal freedoms, economic, political, and social freedoms. If we try to impose a single story out on a continent that has 2,500 languages, several different climates, it is not going to work. There can only be a continental government of maximum freedoms possible, such that the contradictions resolve themselves within the market, within the African marketplace, and not within government. If you force contradictions to resolve within government, the state itself becomes unstable. maximum freedoms, I think.
Thank you, Brother Carrington. You speak beyond being a physicist to something else. But thank you for actually attempting to respond to my questions and my thinking as well.
Yeah, I know I
welcome,
failed,
Brother.
but yeah, that is my best.
No,
yeah.
You're good. You're good. You can be a good advisor to government than David D. Anyway, you cannot advise Ruto because he's a bad leader anyway. Let's get to Sister Myra. Sister Myra, and welcome Brother Sadiki and Brother Gotlak from Sudan. It's a pleasure to have you around. Sister Myra.
So for me, the thing that came to my mind as I read these two paragraphs was the permanence. You know, there's a sense of permanence in European thinking, which I can point to in this current day and age. So, for example, for them, Europeanness is the state of perfection, and they have to go around the world cloning, creating clones of themselves in education, in governance, in constitutions, in the economy, in capitalism. And we see that in our own African societies where the education is colonial still, the economic policies, political policies are dictated from elsewhere for their own benefit and not ours. But then what I find very interesting was that one sentence that says they had the good fortune to Europe threw up men who had power and the will, but not the good fortune to implement the perfect society. So I think what he's implying, what the author's implying, is they fail. So then I'm thinking, what does it mean in our current time now? Obviously, we for those that follow geopolitics, we see the problems that are coming up, that kind of clear when you follow the economic hardships, the economies, how the economies are going, and the wars that they call democratization, but it's not really, is it? So what happens, and what does that mean for us who aspire for one Africa that Brother Carrington has beautifully described? Yes, that's it. Thank you. I yield.
Sister Myra. Sister Myra.
Yeah.
There are two sets of African setup as a society. There are people and society that have tried to succeed in the past. There are some that failed in the past. There are some that are being seen, like now the Sahel, being seen as trying to move towards what is the optimum to be more of perfect for the people or what the people need. But there are some that are still moving away and away from what the people don't need, like Kenya, where the people become enemy of state. And therefore, when you say, of course, as I see you read to this paragraph that say but not the good fortune to implement the perfect society. Therefore, it still takes back to the understanding, I think, what you're trying to read to. If people have the power and have the will, then what is this fortune? And then it's needed to lead a perfect society. And if that is it, does it mean some part of the leaders previously in the African history had the fortune? And maybe currently, as is being said, maybe the leaders in the Sahel might be having the fortune, while others don't have. What is this fortune? And I think that's also something I think you're thinking in the line as well. Oh, let me know what you think.
I would tie my answer back to the two previous paragraphs, where it said these philosophers had the ideas, but they failed to implement them. And I think the fortune for me, what I thought was perhaps the fortune then is recognizing amongst ourselves here. Let's say we were 11 of us here, and we were a Pan-African activist organization. perhaps the fortune would be having the wherewithal and the humility to recognize what our strengths are and what our weaknesses were, and then to look for, if we have a weakness, let us look for people who have the strengths that we don't have. So if I have an idea, Brother Pigeon, but I don't have the political experience or the skill to implement it, but I know that you do, because I know that that's the work, you do that work in Kenya, then I shouldn't then put myself forward for elections because I have this brilliant idea and I'm the only one who can implement it. No, perhaps I'll say, Brother Pigeon, I have this idea, but I don't have the skills to implement it, but I think you do, because you know how this political machine works. So perhaps it's going back to our communal way of doing things, of recognizing in each other who can do what, who cannot do what, and working to our strengths, and not looking down on weaknesses, but recognizing where can we go to fill that gap, working together and not individual, walking away from individualism and the craving for power, which we see now in the neo-colonial states, where because I liberated you, that is a story we hear in some countries I won't mention, because we went to the bush and we fought for you and we liberated you, and I'm the only one with a vision for the country. But where's the country now, really? You've been ruling for 40 years. Where's the country now? So perhaps it is recognizing in each other that we have to work together as one, in unity, pulling up each other in our weaknesses and helping each other in our strength. I think that's the fortune.
Okay, so I'm trying to read it as well. But do you think if we were to ask Napoleon today whether the life he led and the society led was perfect to him, will he say that it was not perfect? Or whether if you ask Hitler today, or whatever society produced with all his philosophy and ideology, will he feel that he never produced what is perfect to him? And maybe then this perfect society, is it, is it being arrived at? Is it a personal thinking of perfection, or is it a communal understanding of what is perfect? These are just what I'm trying to think as well, as I'm trying to throw them up and down.
I'll start with the last statement. I think it's more communal for us Africans, more communal than individualistic. We need to move away from this populist, or if we should vote for I don't know, whoever, John or Cato, and he's the only savior and he will help us. No, we need to recognize that we can all be leaders and contribute something. Then to go to the beginning of your question, I can't really speak for Napoleon and Hitler, because I haven't really studied them or read or gone into any detail into that history. But I would assume so. Yes, absolutely. I think they'll be like, yeah, we were the best at the thing. We did what was right.
Okay, thank you, sister. Brother Kwame, do you wanna come in? Or we move to Brother Sam, Elder Sam?
Let's hear from Sam. Yeah.
Okay, Elder Sam.
Thank you, and what can I say? I've been away for some time, so I must first start by greeting everybody for the new year. And I've listened to all the contributions. It's very scary what we are trampling into. But I think, brothers and sisters, the importance of what we are doing is what I think Kwame Nkrumah had in mind. He wanted us to worry ourselves about whatever is taking place around us. And he wanted us to understand a lot of the pitfalls that they and his contemporaries suffered in terms of the theory of revolution. And I think for me, this is perfect. And when we talk about this perfect, when they say things are relative, we all want this perfect ideal situation, but we should understand it will always be relative. The important thing is it must satisfy the majority of the people in that country. And this is the fundamentals that we should not lose trend of. And I'm talking about this because, you know, if you take the situation of Africa, and I'm always taking it from the position of us in South Africa, we saw ourselves in South Africa as the last bastion of oppression and colonialism. We saw ourselves as surrounded by Africa that is free, and Africa that is free, that is now championing this perfect world of a united Africa. And if you ask yourself currently what happened, it is these pitfalls that Kwame Nkrumah is trying to show us, that people thought they have reached the ultimate. People thought they have reached the revolution's end state, which is not the case. And this is where I want to make my input into. If I look at the situation here in South Africa, the African National Congress is celebrating 113 years of a revolution. And if you check the oppression and the suppression that is on the ground, then you will wonder, when will this perfect ideal state be reached in South Africa? And if that is the case, when will it be reached by Africa? And I'm saying this because the African National Congress were the first liberation movement in Africa. And if they have not reached that ideal state, then we are in for a real big ride. Therefore, it is important to understand these pitfalls that Kwame Nkrumah is trying to show us. People like myself see ourselves starting again the revolution. I'm now almost hovering towards 70 years. And I'm thinking of going back to the bush. And this must tell us something about what we are talking about in these pitfalls that Kwame Nkrumah is trying to show us. We need to have, you know, for this perfect ideal situation to reach, we need to be, the whole majority of the people must be behind. And this is where people are saying fortune. That fortune, it's when almost everything, the leader and the people that he is leading are almost in tandem, and they see this perfect ideal and they are striving for that all together. Unfortunately, what has transpired in all our revolutions, the leaders went into power and they took the diabolically approached direction of now accumulating at the expense of the masses. And we are falling back into the same trap here in South Africa. Thank you.
But Sam, Sam,
I'm listening.
Do you not think that the way you have couched your contribution, you are, if you like, saying what exactly the paragraphs we are reading are saying we shouldn't be saying, the way in which you've couched it? Because you are talking about an ideal society. You are talking about a perfect society and the need to return to the bush to fight for it. Do you not think that is what you're doing, and which is exactly what we are being told from these paragraphs not to do? So Sam, for instance, if you go to the bush and fight and say you won again, what's the guarantee that what you will create will be perfect?
And I think this is exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, but Sam, the way you said it as if it's as if you are saying there is such a thing as a perfect society, which you must fight for. No, that is not what you mean, but the way you said it.
What I'm trying to say is for you to say this revolution has achieved its goal or has achieved the maximum aims of that revolution, it should be something perfect towards what were your objectives. And as I say, those perfections will be relative. They will never be absolute. There's no absolute situation. And my input is we had a stage at one time when socialism was the order of the day, and we had European countries becoming socialist countries. But if you look at all those states, you will see Russia was a communist, or whatever they call themselves communist. The Chinese also call themselves communist, but they were all relatively practicing what they believed in the manner that they, and you can even see, even with their development. So this perfection is all what we strive for, whether it is for socialism, whether it is for communism, whether it is just for being free, as we talk, some of us saying free, it must be something perfect or near to perfection and achieving our goals.
Yeah, but that's the point I'm raising.
Otherwise,
is that what we are trying to
otherwise, then we are fighting for mediocrity, basically. If we are not striving for perfection, then we are striving for mediocrity. And for me, that's not what the revolution is all about. The revolution is to make all the majority of the people to be free and equal in society.
So what is perfection in your so that is what you mean by perfection?
Yes.
So
whenever the majority of the people in a society are not oppressed, suppressed, and they are able to achieve or live their life in the manner that they
all
believe.
Right, so Sam, so I'm assuming that there is such a society, majority have access to what you have mentioned. Supposing there is one child in that society that has been neglected and has gone hungry without the majority noticing, and that child, as a result of being neglected, then loses so much weight that that child dies out of neglect because the majority are okay and have forgotten about the minority. What then? Is that a perfect society?
And that is the relativity that I'm talking about. And even in that ideal or perfect, if we have to reach that, even in that situation, accidents will still happen. There will still be people that overlook things or overdo things. As long as those negativities are not overwhelming all the majority of that society, then that society is striving or is going into the perfection that it is striving for. Otherwise, if we are saying we are not striving for perfection, in fact, that's why we're suffering what we are suffering. Because we waged the revolution and we left everything into the hands of our leaders.
Sam, pause. So you keep using the word perfection.
It's relative.
And you are saying that
it's relative.
It is relative, but but isn't that a contradiction? If it is perfect, how can it be relative?
Because it cannot be absolute.
Then it is not perfect.
It's like an athlete. An athlete will train, if he's a 800-meter runner, he will train and attain a certain level of fitness. And at that time, at the peak of that time, he will be clocking, breaking the records, he'll be outrunning everybody. But because it is relative, there will come a time when it drops down and drops down. He will not stay there forever.
Therefore, it wasn't perfect. You see, so what we are getting at is the idea of perfection. So Plato, for him, the perfect society was the republic. For Aristotle, the perfect society was the race or the racist-based democracy or the slave, because remember he said only Greeks should not be enslaved, everybody else. So it was a racist-based democracy. And for both of them, what they were saying were perfect. So and they said it was perfect. Now we are seeing that it was never perfect. In fact, with Plato, even his own student Aristotle disagreed with him, as we read earlier and saw earlier. So, Sam, what I'm inviting you to consider, this is a thinking session. We share our thoughts, we challenge each other, and then we ask each other to rethink and to listen and to share and to support and so on. So, I suppose what I'm inviting you to do is perhaps what you are telling us is that you are yet to define what the goals are for you. Because if there is no such thing as a perfect society, because it is relative, then what it means is that at every point in time we need to define what it is we are trying to achieve. And when we achieve that, we redefine new ones for ourselves. And when we achieve those new goals, we redefine new goals for ourselves. But Sam, isn't that what the dialectic is, though?
Yes.
That's what the dialectic is.
And Brother Kwame, I think your latter part, these input that you have said are correctly perfect with me. In fact, I would have expected you to ask me what is my perfect or this perfection
But
that
that's
I'm
what
talking about
I was just trying to
in
ask
my
you.
situation. I would have loved that aspect, because for me, having fought the revolution that I was in, I expected, and that is why I always stress, it will be the majority. There will be always a negligible element of people who have not been part of that for various reasons, because it cannot be perfect totally. But the essence is that in the country currently, I heard the Minister of Health today in South Africa saying the economy of the country is being taken more to the 14% people as against the other 76% of people, meaning the status quo has not changed even after the revolution. Even after the ANC has ruled for 30 years, the status quo still favors the white minority people. And for me, that is none. The opposite should be the case, in not only on the basis of the color of the people, but on the basis that the majority of the people must be able to access and share the economy and share everything that South Africa can have in an equal basis.
Okay, Sam.
For me, that will be the ideal situation.
Yeah, hold that thought. Can we step back
Yes.
to in the South African case as an example?
Mm-hmm.
So when South Africa talked about the majority, if you recall the history, what South Africa was saying was that they were against minority rule.
Yes.
And that the minority cannot impose a government on the majority. Yes. And that the majority must have a say in government.
Yes.
But then, as you have rightly pointed, that is a different argument from the democratization of economic power. So the democratization of economic power is not the same as the democratization of political power. And that is the challenge. And as far as I understand it, you guys, all of you who are now in the union government, unity government, however you want to call it, have never defined what the kind of South Africa you want in terms of economics. I recall when I was in South Africa, just after apartheid ended, when I was in South Africa, that question was ducked. All of you, ANC leaders, all of you were just running away from that core question. Now that we have black majority rule, what happens to the economy? That question was dodged. So I think that what is needed, if we use South Africa as an example, is for you guys to define what you mean by economic democracy, because we think there is such a thing as economic democracy.
Okay.
Now,
Can I?
you see, yeah, hold on. So you see, Sam, your fight for a democratic South Africa was different from Ghana's struggle for democratic Ghana. Because remember, you already had democracy, but it was limited to a few. We didn't have it at all because we had a colonial government, you see. So when we were fighting for democracy, we were fighting for the overthrow of the colonial government and it being replaced by a democratic government. So that is the difference between what you fought for and what we fought for. Now we, when I say we, I mean Ghana, led by Kwame Nkrumah, had never believed that we had reached, that we had attained what required to be attained, if that meant some kind of perfection. And that's why we are where we are today, because we are saying that until Africa is united, totally liberated and developed, then we haven't even begun the journey. Because the unification, liberation, and development of Africa is the real beginning of the journey. I hope I'm making sense, Sam.
Yeah, no, I can follow, but I just want to rectify I think it's a misconception that we in South Africa were free under apartheid. No, South Africa has been a colonial state ever since. We have never said South Africa is free. It was the British and the Afrikaners that came with that notion. But we, the Africans, took South Africa as a colonial state. And that is why even today, we still feel we have not attained our freedom. Thanks.
Yes. Okay. His brother Pigeon back, because I know he went off for a moment.
Coming back. I can proceed.
Continue. Yeah, continue.
Okay, we have two brothers who have shared their thinking with us. Permit me to go to them before we come to any other contribution. And this is
Ida has her hand up. Not sure why, but you can find out from her why her hand is up. Yeah.
Okay, Sister Ida.
Right. Well, I was wondering why on some of the things that Brother Kwame was saying, because like Brother Sam, I've never thought that South Africa had was free from colonial influence. I thought they were under colonial rule once, and then hold on.
Pause. When Sam made the point, I didn't think I should respond, but since you've also made it, let me respond. I didn't say.
And maybe you can respond to, because both of these are for you. And the second one is, you've brought in such a thing as economic
democracy.
And to me, that is new, in that I've never ever really heard anybody talk about economic democracy. So maybe you could link those two. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So let me respond to the first one. Sam made a point, but I didn't think that Sam understood me to say that South Africa was democratic under apartheid. That's why I didn't respond, because Sam would have known that's not what I was saying. But what I meant was that there was democracy in South Africa, but it was limited to the minority white population. Only they had democracy. That's what I meant. So the rest of the country, the rest of the country was being run under that minority democratic government. That's what I meant. Sam, am I? Yeah, Sam. So that's what I meant.
Thank you for clearing that up, because it did sound. It did sound dodgy. Thank you.
Yeah, but when Sam responded, I assumed some knew what I meant, so that's why I didn't respond. So if there's a misunderstanding, that's why I need to correct it. If for those of you who know the history, you will know that the reason that Nkrumah, one of the reasons why Nkrumah and J.B. Dankwa, who is related to the past president of Ghana, Akufo-Addo, one of the reasons why Nkrumah and J.B. Dankwa disagreed was because JB was saying exactly the point, was making the point that South Africa was a democratic country. And then Nkrumah said, no, South Africa is an apartheid state. So because South Africa was recognized as a country. Some correct me if I'm wrong here. South Africa was initially in 1948, South Africa was recognized under
As a
international
republic.
law.
Yes, as a republic. Yes.
As a republic under international law. So it was part of the United Nations in 1948. It wasn't ostracized. It was later, some correct me if I'm wrong here, it was later when the campaign started against South Africa, the minority government, that is when action was taken at the international level. Yeah. Yes, Sam, you can come in if I've not said it correctly.
You're correct. You're correct on that. Thanks.
Okay. So thanks for that. So J.B. Dankwa, who was a Ghanaian at the time, one of the leading politicians in the Gold Coast before it was Ghana, made the argument that South Africa was a republic. It had a democratic government, therefore it was free. And CPP was saying no. And incidentally, it was leaders of Sam's party. Sam, remind us against your party's name.
Sorry.
Your party's name again. Remind us. And
Pan-Africanist Congress. Pan-Africanist Congress.
And your leader. Your then leader.
Then was Potlako Lebalo.
The famous one. The one who was put in house arrest. The one from
Sobukwe.
Robert Sobukwe.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but incidentally, Sobukwe and others then said no. They agreed with Nkrumah. They didn't agree with J.B. Dankwa, and therefore, as Sam has rightly pointed out, went ahead to form the Pan-Africanist Congress, which basically which took the same position as the CPP of Ghana under the leadership of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So I hope that is now clearer.
Yes, that's clear. That's why on our flag of the PAC we've got the star at where Ghana is. So you are correct, 100%.
Thank you for correcting my
history. Thank you
for affirming that my history score. Now on economic democracy, I'm surprised the first time you've heard about it, Sister Ida. Economic democracy has always been there as an idea, but the political Democrats, because they love capitalism, have refused to let the economic democracy work. So economic democracy is where, if you take a market, any market you like, when there's a market and consumers come into the market, as you can imagine, things in the market are for a certain price, any price you like. Now, just imagine that 10 people come into the market, and one person has 70% of all the money in that society, and he has the same market as the 9 others, and the 9 others in that society have 30% of all the money in the society, and this one person, this is an example by the way, has 70% of all the money. What do you think will happen in the market? your guess is as good as mine. So economic democracy is the idea that when we come into a market, there must be democracy in the sense that the sharing of purchasing power must be such that all of us have the ability to buy what we need in that market and survive and thrive and live as human beings.
because when that doesn't happen, some people come into the market and they have zero money. So they can't buy the basic foodstuffs they need. And because they can't, if they are a family, you can imagine what will happen to their children. Their children will starve or will be malnourished and so on. So, Sister Ada, that is what economic democracy is about. Now, according to...
Can I just come in and ask you a question? Is that not just socialism?
No, that is not socialism. That is economic democracy.
Okay, thank you. Thank
you. Now, when we fought for the liberation of Africa, starting from the Gold Coast, which became Ghana in 1957, let's remind ourselves, because Brother Carrington liked to get us to remind ourselves. So let me use Brother Carrington's language here. Let's remind ourselves that what we set out to do were two things. We set out, one, to liberate ourselves politically, meaning that we take control of the government. That's number one. After we take control of the government, our next step was to take control of the economy. Yeah. And then once we take control of the economy, we will then be able to reorganize the society the way we wanted it. The problem we have is that we achieved the first one. South Africa did that in 1994. But West Sahara is still yet to achieve that against Morocco. But the second one is the problem. And let me pause there, because you all are aware that is a problem. And the soldiers in Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad are saying enough is enough. You guys, the civilians, you don't seem to be able to sort this out. So now we, the soldiers, will see how we can do it. Let me pause there. Thank you.
Brother Kwame?
Yes, sir.
Brother Pigeon, can I ask something? Rest. Can I ask something?
Okay.
Yeah, Brother Kwame.
I'm listening, sir.
I want to bring this issue, you know, and this is where our problem has been in South Africa. The notion that you separate the revolution, you separate the political and the economic revolution. I think this is where the challenge is. Had the liberation struggle of South Africa being a total liberation and emancipation, it would have spelled that everything, when we take power and we level the playing field, the economic redistribution of the economic wealth of the country. That should have happened when we said we are liberated, when we said we have attained our freedom. But because we have the tendency that says we are pausing, this is the political freedom, and then we are now going to embark, that is totally not a correct way of doing the revolution. Thanks.
Yeah, but Sam, that what you said applies to the entire continent. Thank you. Hello. Yeah, Brother Pigeon, over to you. Continue, sir. Okay. I know this conversation is picking up, but basically what I can read is the struggle for a perfect society. How it fails, how it works out, and the challenges is what I'm reading. And I think it's still in line with what you are reading today. But I know Brother Coco hand is back. Please permit me to give two members who haven't shared their thinking, then I can get back to you, please, Brother Coco. Let me allow Brother Sadiki to share his thinking with us, and General Nunaki is also here. Then he can open up the conversation. But all we have been doing, we are sharing our thinking in regards to this paragraph, and it has elicited a lot of conversation, discussion, and everything else, but is in line with this aspect of perfect society, static society, finite society, and all that is mentioned in this paragraph. Brother Sadiki, welcome. Brother Sadiki? Oh, okay, Brother Sadiki, let me know if you'll be able to unmute yourself and speak.
Peace, peace. What's happening? I just was washing dishes and, do all,
I know.
But yeah,
I know. You've been
so,
listening to the conversation, I hope so.
I tell you the truth, bro. I was listening, but I was listening at a distance because I was washing my dishes to go to bed, And, so I tuned in earlier, when you were discussing the beginning part of
Okay.
philosophy.
Okay. Okay, Brother Sadiki, then I hope I'll be able to see you tomorrow.
Yeah,
We might have the
that's
conversation extended
possibility.
tomorrow when we meet.
Okay. Yeah, because right now
Okay.
I'm throwing off and I'm about to go to sleep on you.
Okay,
You
thank you.
know,
General
I'm
Nunaki?
sorry about that. Pardon me?
Okay, it's okay. It's okay, Brother Sadiki. General Nunaki, are you able to share your
All right,
thinking?
Black.
Or you're still in the
Peace.
farm as well? You're always in the farm. General Nunaki?
Yes, son of the lake. Yeah, I'm still there. I'm just here in the weekend for a chat service and then I go back. Yeah, okay. No, the only thing I can say is that it's not the first time we as the black people have reached this level of economic development, social development. The last time there was this diaspora and African social economic development was in the 1870s in America. During that time, the black people believed that racism would be finished. But okay, voila, here we are today. Still the same old white man. So trying to rule the black man by force. So even today, we are in that situation as the black people. It doesn't matter. It's just worse here in South Africa because now Ramaphosa is friends with the BRICS, and now Trump is threatening us now here, but must cut ties with BRICS, otherwise South Africa is going to be in trouble. So that's my only concern for now. Thank you.
So do you want to say the society is still static? The problem of 1800 is still with us here today.
Yeah, we still have that problem because we as blacks still delusional in thinking that white men will ever stop to be racist when we know that the basis of capitalism is so the black man can remain in poverty so that it can be used for the capitalism.
That line, do you think that we can change that as a society so that we challenge the static thinking of them by liberating ourselves?
It's too late now. Our ancestors are coming back. So more time now.
Wait, our ancestors are coming back. Is it the Jesus or which ancestors?
Hey, that Jesus is just plagiarism of these Platos and them. Otherwise, they're actually coming back for real.
Yeah. So what, Raspala? So what you're saying, in effect, is that you are affirming the dialectic, and that the static is not real. So that's the essence of what you are saying.
Yes, my elder.
What I think, General, what I think might be interesting is for you to share with us at some point, not today, but one Saturday, this notion of perfection. Because I think the Anunnaki and what they did, the presentation you did for us the last time, has within there what the goal was in terms of creating some kind of perfect society. So I think, Brother Pigeon, I think it would be interesting for you to liaise with Brother Raspala so that he can share with us some ideas on what the goal was with respect to when a new group was incubated. Yeah, I don't want to use certain words because this recording will go on YouTube. So I'm careful because I live in England. I'm choosing my words very carefully. But General can say what he likes because he's not here. Yeah, Brother Pigeon.
Okay, but
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I
go
hope
on.
you'll notify me before the ancestors. You'll notify me before the ancestors come. And that's very worrying if the ancestors will be coming before we attain some level of perfection in our society. It means they'll come finding us still suffering. Hope they'll take us somewhere we'll enjoy. And Brother Coco. Brother Coco? Okay. Brother Coco?
Do you
Brother
hear me?
Coco?
Yes, do you
Yes,
hear
we
me?
can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. I raised my hand during the discussion between Dr. Tau and Brother Kwame, because I think Dr. Tau made a statement here which was intriguing in saying South Africa split the revolution into two between economics and political. But I would like to remind him why the PAC was formed in the first place. The PAC is a breakaway from ANC. And the youth then at the time, Sobukwe and the others, they realized that the ANC was being infiltrated. And it was infiltrated, watered down, and the Freedom Charter was born. And the Freedom Charter guaranteed rights for everyone who lived on the land. That was where it all went bad for the Africans, for South Africa, everyone. So the fight, whatever fight happened, it happened under those parameters, within those parameters, let me say. So it was just a fight for political liberation. Let's just say that, with the Freedom Charter as it was. It was never ever going to be about economic emancipation for the South Africans.
But
That's that part.
Brother Coco.
Yeah.
Brother Coco, in the Freedom Charter, when you talk of freedom, did that not touch freedom of land? And is not land an economic aspect than a political aspect?
But that's
short,
the point
what the
Brother Coco is making, that the way in which the Freedom Charter was crafted, what Sam was referring to, had even at that time been already concluded. And that's the point Brother Coco is making.
Thank you.
And if I may build on that, Brother Pigeon, in Ghana, there was a group of politicians who had the same mindset as the Africans in South Africa who subscribed to the African Charter. That group was the group that believed that what they needed to do was to be in government with the white man. They didn't want to kick the white man away. They didn't want the white man to leave Ghana, then Gold Coast. They wanted the imperialists to stay. And that because they had been educated and could speak English and were cultured. And remember, in those days, they were a minority. All these talk about education for everybody, that came later when we got independence. Under colonial rule, only a few people were educated. So they were really an elite. So what they really believed is that they would govern the country alongside the imperialists or the Caucasians. And that is what the ANC represented. We had it in Ghana as well. In Ghana, the reason we were lucky was that Nkrumah came in, and you recall that Nkrumah refused to go to the UK to study on the advice of the Nigerian the first president of Nigeria, Azikiwe, Nnamdi Azikiwe, who advised Nkrumah to go to the US instead of the UK. And it was from the US that Nkrumah then continued to develop his political consciousness. And when he came back, and as you can imagine, he broke ranks with those group of politicians. So what Sobukwe did, or what Sobukwe and the group did in distancing themselves from the ANC, is exactly what Nkrumah also did in Ghana when he formed the CPP and distanced himself from those group of politicians. Let me pause there because this is an interesting history. It's got ramifications, but yeah.
Okay. permit me to share my thinking as well in the few minutes. Brother Kwame, did you share your thinking?
No,
I
he
have.
hasn't.
I
You
have.
two haven't shared.
Yeah, no, I have, Sister Ida.
have.
No, you need to be fair to me. I have because I've
Okay, yeah, okay.
interjected here
Okay,
and there.
okay. Just to be brief enough, I'm getting that Nkrumah said it's a very interesting point. The difference between Plato and Aristotle, notwithstanding. And I think this difference, Brother Kwame has elaborated it as the difference between either one pursuing democracy and one pursuing republic, as it is. I don't know. Because our republic has been mentioned here in Plato's talks in the first paragraph, but they conceiving a society in static term. That's what is interesting here. All of them saw society in a static term. And I think this is not the right way to see a society. And I think that's why Nkrumah is bringing it here. Society is not static. Society is moving. So their conception was of a society which permitted no revision. Basically, I can say also no revolution or no evolution. And that's wrong, because I don't think there's a society that do not require evolution, revolution, or anything else per se, because there's always a struggle to have better. And there's never, as I think, there's never perfect, as it has been said. And what is no, the perfect society will have been attained, and what is perfect cannot change for the better. That's very funny. So to them, that is where they were. And I think today is still what we suffer. There are people still think that their thinking is the perfect society or a perfect country. But we've seen countries move various evolution, go through various processes, as I'd say, from imperialism, we move to colonialism and neocolonialism, and things keep moving. Now, the experiment of people trying now to put their ideas into fruition, failing by the failure of Napoleon and the rest, this is something very interesting. And I think as Nkrumah is trying to, I don't know if Nkrumah is trying to tell us that there's not a perfect society, or rather we should not pursue a perfect society. And yeah, Brother Kwame, maybe that will help me as we come to an end.
No, good point. Maybe at this point, let me listen to Sister Ida and contribute. So what Nkrumah is saying is what this book is about. Chapter 2 is about the relationship between philosophy and society. So what Nkrumah is telling us is that we ourselves, conscientists, those of us here, when we are thinking of what it is we are trying to achieve, let's be mindful that that which we think is the best is not perfect, that it is subject to change. Thank you. Because the best is not the best of something doesn't mean it is perfect. Yeah.
I think it's a good a good ending. But Sister Ida, what do you want to say? Because a minute to this.
Yeah, I put something in the chat about, I think we need to have a conversation about economic development on a Saturday, please.
Brother Kwame had proposed this already. Brother Kwame had proposed.
Oh, so sorry.
Economic democracy.
But if you check our programs for Saturday, something of politics, economics. So we have Brother Coca, I see you put actually an article that I'd share of Nyerere conversation. Just to let you know, of course, it's written consciousism, but Brother Kwame, I think you are not conscious of that document coming from us as consciousism study group. It's either consciousism as it is, but not our document.
Yeah, so, yeah. Sorry, what was your question?
No, there's a document of the interview that has been posted in the group, which I posted between interview of Nyerere and that journalist. It's written https.consciousm.wordpress.
Yes, it's fine. Yeah. So sorry, what is your point, Brother Pigeon?
Do we own the thinking? Like, is it our WordPress or it was some people did it?
I haven't read this yet, so I need to read it.
Okay.
But the brother who owns that web, he and I fundamentally disagree.
Okay, I think you have done an article of your disagreement.
Yeah, we'll share that later. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
So comrade, but Brother Pigeon, we are all free to read whatever we want and then share our thinking. It's fine.
Okay. So, comrades, thank you. I think today somebody asked me a very funny thing that I've been sharing posts and article writings pertaining Plato and Aristotle. And they've been asking me, why is Nkrumah so much obsessed of Aristotle and Plato? And why do we keep on every day talking of Aristotle and Plato? But I need to explain to them that this is a reading class and we read the text as it is. So we don't jump. We don't move from verb. We go steadily. And the purpose, I think, what I also explained is that Nkrumah wants us to see this thinking on how their philosophy influenced that society so that we can see the mistakes and their shortcomings as we build a society that you want. And if they all confirm that it's true, the philosophy and ideology of Aristotle and Plato is maybe what is in practice up to date. So as they say that it's Greek
Sorry,
and it's
Pigeon,
old
can
time.
I come? Pigeon, can I come in there? I think you've made a point. That's precisely the point. Plato and Aristotle are still alive today. And that's what they need to understand. And one of the reasons we are reading this to understand what is going on, because it's easy to miss. You see, the problem with the youth today is that they don't understand philosophy. I'll pause there because of the time.
Okay, so thank you much, comrades. This Saturday we are looking at Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement, which is more of economics, because now you've introduced actual economics to politics, and we did IT sometimes back. We have actually we have done a draft of the whole year program for our Saturdays. Brother Kwame did that, and we'll be able to share it at some time with members. But we have a structured program for Saturday. So we are looking at African Free Continental Trade Agreement. I'll be able to share something in regards to that, waiting for some presentations, but feel free to come in. I know we are discussing it for almost the second time, but there's an angle we are looking at this year. And then next Thursday, we'll continue from where we left. We still continue the Kiswahili classes. We actually resumed this week, and we are looking forward to more. We are sharing our recordings on every Tuesday. Our library is growing very good. I think we have almost now 700 books in our library. If you haven't joined the library, feel free to join the library. And the research team is also moving, Brother Kwame. People are coming in. So we are doing so many things in all the lines. And I think we are moving to the right direction. So once again, permit me to appreciate your time and looking forward to have you this Saturday once again. Thank you very much for your time and for your contributions as well. Your thinking, it has actually made us to be who we are. And I know one day they'll come back to our recordings and it will be like a cause to the coming generation to understand how we are thinking. Thank you very much, comrades, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Brother Pigeon, I know I'm guilty myself of this, but let's start rounding up by 5 minutes to the hour so that we can finish dead on time. I know I am the first person to be guilty of that.
It was a good session, though. It was very good.